So for the last year, I've really been focusing on having as minimalist camera setup as possible. And that really started with me finding out about the Lumix S5. Around 6 months ago, I bought the Lumix S5. And before that, I actually didn't know about the camera at all. I used to use bigger cameras like the Ursa Mini Pro 12K and Aero Alexa Mini. And I also owned the Pocket 6K OG, which was a camera that you had to rig out quite a bit to make it usable. You had to buy V-Lock batteries, you had to get the camera rig, you had to get an external monitor just to make it work properly, at least in my opinion. But then when I found out about the Lumix S5, I was quite impressed by what people were able to make with it. I was also quite impressed by how little it costs. So I decided to buy it and just been really happy with it ever since. I think the main reason why I like it so much is the IBIS, because with the stabilization you get from this camera, you don't really need to rig it out at all. You can just use it handheld, and the stabilization is so good. It just looks like normal handheld. It has a little bit of that floaty look, but not too much. I've even used it on a feature film, just using it handheld without anything else. And for like 99.9% of the shoot, it looked more than good enough for me. And also, you don't have to rig it out when it comes to battery solutions. It has a small battery that costs around $20. And you don't really have to use much money on storage. The camera only needs small SD cards like this. And don't really have to have that fast of an SD card either, because it shoots in H.264 422 10K 10-bit. And it's only around 150 megabytes per second, which is quite small, especially considering what type of image you're getting. I use it on feature films. I use it on all my YouTube videos. First off, I think the image looks great. And I also think it's quite easy to color grade as well. So in many ways, you're saving money because you don't have to use a lot of money rigging it out. The battery solution is cheap, and also the file size or the card solution is quite cheap as well. It's very cheap actually. It's probably one of the cheaper solutions you can have. And for me, it's just been a joy to work with the camera. And the images I've been getting, I think, competes with the image that I've been getting from the Aero Alexa Mini, the Ursa Mini Pro 12K, and especially the Pocket 6K OG. And this camera is cheaper, but this one has a full frame sensor, which is quite impressive. I think for me, with this type of camera, it really opened my eyes on how minimalist you can keep a setup while still getting great results. And then for the lenses I've been using for this camera, first off is the 7 Artisan Spectrum 35mm, which I'm shooting on now, which is a $400 budget cine lens. It's a T2 lens, and I'm actually shooting wide open. Obviously, T2 isn't like that big of a T-stop, or you don't get that super shallow depth of field. But compared to other lenses that are in this price range, you can actually shoot in this lens wide open without getting much chromatic aberration or it going soft or anything like that. So everything I'm shooting with this lens has actually been wide open. And I've been really happy with the images I've been getting out of it. It's relatively clean, but it has a little bit of that vintage look. And also, the lens isn't super heavy, but it doesn't feel cheap either. It has this aluminium, or I don't know what to call it, but it's definitely not plastic. And it feels very good to, shoot with. The only problem with the lens is the focus throw. It's quite large. So if you want to do rack focus, that will be quite hard just doing it by hand. And with me having a minimalist camera setup, everything I do is by hand. I don't have a, follow focus or anything like that. So that's a little bit of a problem, but most of the time it just means that you get very precise focus. My other lens is the Blazar Remus 35mm, which is a budget anamorphic lens. And I have the Metabones PL2L mount to mount the camera to the Lumix S5. And this is actually a S35 lens. So when I'm shooting with the Blazar Remus 35mm, I'm shooting in APS-C mode on the Lumix S5. And the great thing about the Lumix S5, the readout speed for the full frame mode is around 20 milliseconds, but when you shoot APS-C mode, it actually half the readout speed, so it's only 10 milliseconds, which is very impressive for a camera like this. This is actually the only anamorphic lens that I ever tried. But from what I've seen on YouTube and stuff like that, this might be the best budget lens, at least considering the price. It's around $899. This was the only lens I used on a feature film I DOP'd on this summer. And the great thing about the Lumix S5 is that it has a anamorphic IBIS. So you can still use IBIS with the camera while shooting anamorphic. And it's quite impressive considering that the anamorphic image has quite a lot of funky stuff at the edges. But I don't know how they do it, but they're able to compensate for it with the IBIS. The Lumix S5 also has anamorphic D-squeeze, so I'm able to monitor the 1.5x squeeze in the monitor while shooting with this lens. So that means that I don't have to buy an external monitor to monitor the squeeze. I usually shoot it at T2.8. At wide open, it's at 1.6 T-stop, but I'm usually shooting it at 2.8. But I also used it at T2 and T2.4. But I found that T2.8 was in focus, is then relatively sharp, and it's a very usable image. But you can still use it at all the way up to T2. I think at T1.6, the chromatic aberration becomes a little too much, but that's also has a lot to do with taste as well. I also mentioned earlier that it's a Super 35 lens, but I also used it in full frame mode, and you're actually able to use most of the image in full frame mode. You only have to crop it around 1.3x into the image to use the lens. And also, if you actually compensate and do lens correction in DaVinci Resolve and compensate for the barrel distortion, you actually only need to crop in around 1.2x. So I record all my sound into the camera. I use a Panasonic XLR Adapter. Not really sure what the name of it is. That goes directly into the camera, the adapter, and that means that you get two XLR inputs. And then I input my microphone that I'm using right now. And the microphone I'm using is the Sennheiser MKE 600, which I bought used for around $150. And I don't really know much about sound, but I find that the sound that I'm getting out of this microphone is really good, especially for the price point. And it's also a very easy way to record sound. Before I used to use a lavalier mic, but I was always scared that it would be because I can't hear what I'm recording, right? I was always scared that I'll have, rustling and stuff like that from the shirt when using a lavalier mic. And also like having my hands busy by holding the microphone. So it feels more like I'm talking on a stage or something like that. Or like I'm a stand-up comedian or something like that. So I find this much more comfortable. Actually, the last thing I have on my camera is a Benro tripod that I bought for around $200. So the great thing about the Lumix S5 is that it's relatively light, so I don't have to worry too much about the tripod I'm using. Most tripods will withstand the weight from the Lumix S5. So that's also a plus using a smaller camera like the Lumix S5. And also, speaking of size, is that when I'm bringing my camera on shoots and stuff like that, since the battery is so small, the camera is so small, and my lenses are relatively small, everything that I use, I can fit in this bag. So this was a bag, I'm not sure, it's a Low Pro, I actually don't know what bag it is. I got it when I bought the Lumix S5 used. So I can easily just bring it, put all my stuff in there, a lens, a camera, and some SD cards and some batteries, and I'm good to go to start shooting. And yeah, that's all the equipment that I use for my Lumix S5. That's all the equipment I need to be able to shoot what I think is quite cinematic footage, especially for my YouTube channel, but also been able to shoot feature films and other projects with this camera setup. And I think what's great for me really committing to this type of camera setup is that it's been quite freeing, not having to worry about bringing too much equipment, having to fill up my car. With this small bag and this, small setup, I can just put it on my seat next to me or put it in the trunk. And there will always be space for this small setup, no matter how packed the car is. And it also doesn't take much time to get ready. Like I only need a minute to, mount the lens and I'm pretty much ready to go. So I made a conscious decision of not buying too much gear. So the type of stuff that I don't want is a external monitor, a rig on the camera, a shoulder rig, external batteries, and having to have wires outside of the camera to make it work. To me, that just stresses me out and stands in the way of me being able to make the best type of content that I want to make. And also some other gear that I use. I edit all my footage on a MacBook Pro 2020 M1, which is 16 gigabyte RAM. And I bought it used a couple of months ago for around $500. And it's been working great. And I also edit on DaVinci Resolve. And with the image I've been getting, or the files I've been getting with the Lumix S5, first off, I've been shooting for half a year. And I still haven't been able to fill up even a 2 terabyte SSD. And the image edits quite well. I don't have to use proxies. I think also a tip for you guys is not only having things being minimal, but also look out for, used camera gear. I think especially the Lumix S5 is definitely a camera you should buy used. But I think with technology kinda plateauing, I think in a way, when it comes to phones, cameras, laptops and stuff like that, you can easily buy gear that's 5 years old that still holds up. That's much cheaper than the gear that's now coming out. So yeah, that's my minimalist camera setup. Hope this maybe inspire you in a way, or maybe open your eyes a little bit. I'm of the impression that a lot of people think that you have to rig out your camera to make it work. But I think with cameras like the Lumix S5, that's not necessarily the case. So yeah, I've just been really happy with this setup, and maybe it will be something for you guys too to maybe try out. So I hope you enjoyed.